Welcome to another episode of Founders Club. Today we're going to be talking to Michael Mnatsakanian, who is the founder of Coast to Coast Vets, ex-military, and an expert real estate investor specializing in wholesaling, house hacking, and creative real estate deals like seller financing and subject to. We're going to be talking about how he's buying properties every single week with little to no money out of pocket, how he's acquiring properties subject to existing financing, and everything you need to know about subject to, like due on sale clause, when the seller can purchase another home again in the future by qualifying for financing, and how he structures all of his deals. If you have any questions, make sure you put them in the box down below. Also, judo chop that like button so other people just like you can find this video. Also, make sure you join our free Facebook group, link in the description. And as always, if you like money and you like real estate, hit that subscribe button because this is the show for you. We'll see you on the inside. Welcome to Founders Club, the show for real estate entrepreneurs. Sitting here with Michael. Very excited that you came in today. We're going to be sharing a couple beers. We've got some very interesting beers today, actually, from our friends at South Bay Liquor. So shout out to Tommy and the crew over there. I'm going to be drinking an Energy City Brewing Grasshopper Pie, which is an imperial milk stout with chocolate cookie crumbs, marshmallows, mint, and natural flavors. So we're gonna give that a try and see how that goes. And then Michael's got the another wild one.
Yeah, I got out of order American sour. Tried it a little bit. It tastes like a pretty cool smoothie, and it contains alcohol.
There you go.
That.
Well,
So I was
cheers.
eager.
We're gonna dive in.
Yes, sir. How was it?
Wow,
Unique.
that's like I don't even know how to describe it. It's like a limey Guinness, but
Well,
thicker
yeah, this one's pretty thick too. That's the smoothie there.
and marshmallowy. So they nailed it. So anyway, appreciate you coming in today. I know a little bit about your story. We met at Dre Evans' event, so
Mhm.
shout out Dre Evans. Um, and we got had a couple good conversations since then. I
Yep.
was really intrigued by some of the stuff you're doing in the real estate space on the investing side, putting together really creative deals, putting together no money out of pocket deals,
Mhm.
all that kind of stuff. But before we jump into all that, why don't you tell me a little bit about your backstory and just how you got in the real estate game?
Definitely. So I'll just start just really high level. I have a kind of similar background to a lot of people, right? So I have my family immigrated to America. I'm first generation American. My mom and my father split very young. She had to work three jobs as a single mom in a whole new country to take care of us. And the only thing I really want to explain out of that is she really taught us to value experience and memories over materials and possessions. So that's
Mm,
always been something really important to me. And it's kind of embodied what I really value in life and kind of what I look for out of life. Just trying to make as many memories and experiences as possible. I drive a 2015 Nissan Altima and a 2015 Honda Civic, and I love it. It's like the perfect cars for me. So those are things that are really important to me is just like focusing on those kinds of things. And in addition to that, basically my goal has always been to retire early, and was going to be a doctor to do that. Halfway through school, realized that's gross. I personally like can't handle being in a hospital and seeing all that stuff after volunteering. Pivoted to engineering, let me play with numbers and all that, and then after working a few years as an engineer, I decided, that wasn't, and I do really good with saving money, all that investing in the total US stock market and just trying to retire early that way. Pretty much planned on retiring in my early 40s, late 30s, and then just started incorporating real estate investing when I realized that I can do it in certain ways that would minimize my money out of pocket and it would actually lead to some financial benefits. And that's like where I started my entry to real estate was house hacking small multifamily properties.
all right, so let's start there. Um, Tell us about that because I think house hacking is a great way to get started. And I know you've come a long way since then, but I think that's an important part of the story. So why don't you tell us about those first couple house hack deals you did?
Definitely. So I will start with I think it's so important to build your foundation of real estate knowledge like one step at a time. I think people overwhelm themselves by trying to do too much at once and then just give up or burn out. And I say this to kind of go into my story. I know some people are successful at 20 years old, they make $1 million wholesaling, but like I really think there's a good, it's like any type of education. There's like a good path to like becoming really creative and really successful in the long term. And it starts with building that foundation. So 2017, 2018, I started learning about real estate. I was active duty Army at the time, or I was getting into the Army at the time, and engineering officer, similar lane to what I studied for. And I was stationed up in Fairbanks, Alaska. So in 2020, after joining my first RIA and being around people, so at that point, I was in the phase of continually learning. And, a lot of people are stuck in that for their whole life, right? The difference between someone who buys a property and doesn't is just that action taking, right?
Mm.
A lot of people have the knowledge and never pull the trigger. So I think I was in analysis paralysis, underwriting a bunch of deals, but until I got into a RIA, real estate investment, I don't know, association, and I was around other real estate investors, and I could bounce, hey, I underwrote this property. What do you think about that? What do you think about this property? Um, I think until I saw people succeeding in the thing I specifically wanted to succeed in is what gave me the confidence to pull the trigger when I found my
Mm.
first house hack.
Mm.
So that was a 2 unit property. We used the VA loan. I had the VA loan at the time. It's not the only way to buy a multifamily house hack. You can do an FHA loan. You can do a conventional loan. But if you want low to no money down, if you are a veteran, you get the 0% down VA loan. FHA loan, you can buy up to 4 units at 3.5% down. Pretty sweet deal to
Mhm.
take control of 4 units. And this one was just such a home run. So I got my first ever real estate property was in under contract of March of 2020. The same time COVID started, the same time everyone was freaking out. I saw this property. No one was touching real estate, especially in Alaska at the time. No one was really touching anything. Everyone was just trying to see what was going to happen out there in the
Mhm.
world. So it was a duplex. It was structurally sound. It was cosmetically needed to be rehabbed. Build some non-load bearing walls, paint, flooring, little things like that. But it was such a solid property, and the numbers made so much sense that it was just like, even if I mess up, I'm putting little to no money down. If anything, if this thing works halfway decently, it's going to cover the majority, if not all of my mortgage, and I'm going to control my first real estate property with little to no money down. So
Mhm.
that was the start of house hacking. And every year since, my wife and I have house hacked another small multifamily. So
Mm.
every year we continue to do that. And I think that's the best way to start. You spend a little bit of time on the education piece, just learning as much as you can, and then actually taking action, probably on a regular conventional loan, something conventional VA, FHA, just understand what the real estate process looks like, and then build from there. Because
Okay.
from there, I went to creative financing, wholesaling, and like now, we're buying a creative deal every week, basically. So,
That's awesome.
yeah, I can talk a little bit more about the house hacks that we've done if
Yeah,
that's
so I'm
interesting.
curious on that first one. Was that
Yeah.
just so you go to the RIAs, the club, you're connecting with like-minded people,
Mhm.
you're meeting people that can help you vet deals, all that kind of stuff. How did you find this first deal? Was that just an MLS deal
Mhm.
with a VA loan?
Yeah, so MLS deal. This actually was a bank owned property at this time. The previous owner got foreclosed on. He bought it for 230,000 maybe a year or two prior. I got it under contract at 168. I know those numbers seem like unreal, like because of, we're in San Diego right now, but I bought that for extremely cheap price, got in with equity. And in addition to the RIA, I would say my first mentor in the real estate space was the investor agent that I was working with. He gave me a lot of insights into how I should be looking at these multifamily properties when you're going in, or investment properties. Like when you're going with most agents, they're going to look at, oh, what's the kitchen look like? Oh, how's the flooring and all that? And with him, we were going through crawl spaces. We were thinking about, okay, this has got a pretty good bedroom to bathroom unit mix, things like that. Foundation, like we were really looking at the investment side of things that are to ensure the property had great bones, because we know we can rehab the cosmetic things, and those
Yeah.
are really cheap to basically do. So got it at 168, negotiated with the bank. They covered the majority of my closing costs, whatever wasn't rolled into the VA loan. Um, Over time, I probably put 20K in rehabbing it. At that time, I was doing basically everything by myself or with my friends. So I had friends.
Okay.
I'd pay them in, like it was like flooring, paint. We did build a few non-load bearing walls. Probably shouldn't have done that, especially because we went permanent. Whatever, it's sold now. So that's done with. But just brought some friends over, got them a bunch of pizza, seltzers and beer, and we just kind of had fun doing this because no one really did this in our friend group, so it was pretty awesome to kind of all work on a project that was like this big. So we were working on that. Got my first tenant in there at he was paying around my mortgage at that time was like $1,300, $1,400 all in, which is insane.
Yeah.
And my rent from the tenant in the other unit was like 1,650. So he was over and that was way above what I thought I was gonna get. So
Wow.
I underwrote it at around 1,400, 1,350 maybe for rent. But talking to one of the RIA guys said, hey, there's such a rental demand here. There's little, really nicely renovated properties. Put it on the market for a little above what you think it's going to go for. And if it doesn't, change it in a
You can
week or
always
two.
back down. Yeah.
Yeah, like, and it's better because it kind of filters out the I don't know how to phrase this right, but the type of tenant that's going to come in there. And I was really trying to, since I was active duty officer, I really wanted to ideally get another active duty officer in there as well,
Hmm.
in the other unit, just to kind of, I don't know, I was comfortable with that. And my
Yeah.
first tenant, I know that we're both getting paid at the same cycle, so I just felt comfortable with that, and it worked pretty well doing that. So I can go deep into the numbers, but
No, that's cool. So I think there's a couple important lessons there. One, you pulled the trigger on just buying something.
mhm,
Sometimes that's the step you just need to take. You just
mhm,
need to pull the trigger. I mean, you obviously got to vet the deal, and it sounds like you did all your due diligence, but you never really are going to know 100%. So you got to
mhm,
just pull the trigger. Two, a lot of times rehabbing this, your first deal, you can do it yourself, and you used your friends and you made it
mhm,
fun and you incorporated everybody. So you're obviously able to do that on a budget. And then you went out, overpriced it a little bit, but I'm sure it was one of the nicer
mhm,
properties in the area, being that it had been 100% freshly renovated.
mhm.
Um, and then now you're bringing in enough cash flow to cover the entire mortgage on your side and that side.
Yeah, it was pretty insane.
Yeah,
So
that's
not only, and that's like that ties back to my personal finance background, is my goal was to minimize my living expenses. So I thought, okay, if they just cover the mortgage, sweet. I'm no longer paying my most expensive cost every month, which is
hmm
housing.
hmm
That was what I was looking for, and the little to no money down made it even better because I didn't have to decide, is this money going in the stock market? Is this going to another investment, or is this going to real estate? It was just easy for me to say, okay, this like makes a lot of sense. And like you said, the underwriting, you can't plan for everything, but actually I underwrite very thoroughly. Not that you can plan for everything, but I think a lot of people, what they struggle with when they really start out is they look at the PITI, the principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, and then they look at that relative to the rent that property brings. And as you know, owner of a property, that's like the minimum amount of costs every month,
Right.
depending on the way the property is built, especially multifamilies. You're gonna have to cover at least some of the utilities, more than likely the water. In Alaska, it's the heat as well. If it's not separately metered, the electric. And then on top of that, right, we account for vacancy, roughly 8 to 10% depending on your
Right.
market. Here I do three
Landscaping, all this. Yeah.
landscaping, capital expenditures when the roof needs to be replaced in 5, 10 years. You want to have savings for that. All the maintenance, plumbing, like so I underwrite for all of those contingencies. So I know worst case scenario, I'm still going to make a certain return that I'm looking
Mhm.
for. And at that time it was around 10 to 12%. Like we've increased our return, like what we look for now, but that's what I was looking for in a market
Yeah.
like that cash
Yeah.
flowed.
That's great. And then, okay, so you did that first deal. Where did it go from there? What was your second deal? Because you did
So
another house hack after that, right?
yeah, so I waited one full year. I did what I was required to. I had the intent to occupy my property, and then I started working with lenders. So at that point, I was still underwriting deals to build my skill set. I actually started conducting like these trainings for people who wanted, because I was underwriting basically every single small multifamily in Fairbanks, Alaska. Everything that hit the market, I was underwriting it already. So I would do like live Zoom calls for anyone who wanted to just hop in and see how I was underwriting, especially because
Mm.
I was very conservative with it. So people from all different skill sets really enjoyed it, whether you're brand new or they were doing it for a while, just because I think people were, and like I'm a nerd, so I really love like numbers and the engineering side of things. So I really love to make great Excel sheets and the underwriting calculator. So I had people in there with me, helping people get their first deals too, because we were underwriting them live together, getting rental comps together, all that fun stuff. But so I just spent that next year, hanging out with my friends, having a good time, rehabbing this property a little bit slowly. It was a slow rehab. Basically, it was like a live and flip over the next year plus.
So this next one's a house.
So this next one actually no was a so this was tough. So yeah, you're asking because it's really hard to go from a 2 unit to another multifamily unit. Usually lenders want you to upgrade your lifestyle if they're willing to lend again.
Mhm.
I had to write a justification letter for why I should be allowed to go from a 2 unit to a 4 unit. So I pulled the trigger on a 4 unit after 1 year. And that was the next house hack that we had. And this one was another great property, great priced, structurally sound. I mean, they even permitted the new hot water heaters they put in. And this is Alaska, right? So it's a little different than here. So they permitted the hot water heaters. They had permits for everything. I was like, it was a great opportunity, and the sellers had a business that they wanted to put their money into. So it just worked out. We can negotiate a great deal.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, this was a 4 unit that I went to. I had to convince the lender why I should be allowed to move from a 2 unit that's bigger to a smaller, 4 unit. So I took some, I learned that lesson that usually you can get lending on another primary residence within 50 miles if and only if you're really upgrading your lifestyle or there's like a valid reason for it. So it took some convincing, but I got through that barrier.
Okay.
And then that's when I decided, and that was another, underwriting wise, very great conservative underwriting that worked out really
So what was the
well.
unit mix on that deal?
All two ones.
All two months. So
All
you lived in one,
yes.
and then you had the others to rent out. What was the price of it? How'd you find it?
Sure. So this was another MLS deal. At that point, this is what I mean by like stacking your knowledge, right? You learn first, you buy a few properties off the MLS, and you learn how to underwrite. Because in that, and I love to talk about it in regards to variables. When you're buying a property on the market, the only real variable is the purchase price, and maybe you can negotiate a little bit on closing costs. But like the lenders are going to tell you what the interest rates are, what the terms they're offering are. There's really not a lot of variables in that regard. You can underwrite for maybe the different rent the property is going to bring in, whatever, but it's really that purchase price is the main variable you have control over. Um, so I was cutting my teeth just underwriting like that, just on market deals, controlling like trying to see what different price points work for different properties. So I bought this one for around. It was originally around 325. Well, it was listed higher, but we got it just 325. And then I love having my never waive an inspection contingency. You save so much money on those inspection contingencies. And don't be like me though either. Don't go on the roof with your inspectors like I do and say, "Hey, that shingle's a little damaged." But I was able to negotiate a whole new roof prior to closing on the deal. So in the end, I bought it for around 331. It was the FHA loan, so I needed 3.5% down, insignificant for taking over an asset of that size.
Mm-hmm.
So got into that one for very little money down. It was essentially a turnkey property, but like a turnkey C plus B minus property. So in the location, still a C plus kind of location, but we basically, lived in one, rented out the other ones, and then as tenants were going to move out just through normal rent raises, um, I decided to rehab the units and list them on midterm rentals and short-term rentals. So that was my first experience into midterm rentals and short-term rentals.
Okay.
I mean, it was still part of the big short-term rental wave, but before kind of the semi crash that's happened in the short-term rental space for like the mom and pop style ones.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's how that one went. They were renting around 1,000. Alaska, or here too. As long as someone moves out, you can bring it up to market rent, which is closer to 1,250, 1,300. After rehab was probably 1,450, but then with midterm rentals, we get, you have to renovate it nicer, furnish it, include utilities. But it's nice because like internet split between all 4 units, like it just helps that it's all together and just
Mm-hmm.
minimizes the cost. But probably able to we get around 1,850 in the slow months and 2,650 in the summer months. And then short-term rentals we get between $100 a day in the winter months, the slow seasons, and 160 plus in the summer months. It's
Wow.
very different numbers.
Yeah.
But all that being said is I've never bought a property by underwriting it as a short-term rental or mid-term rental. I always underwrite it as a long-term rental, just part of that conservative
So
mindset.
you know the numbers work.
I know the numbers work.
Yeah.
If shit hits the fan, then I know for sure that my numbers are going to work as a long-term rental, and I'm going to have a long-term rental that's been recently renovated, even furnished potentially, but renovated. I know it's going to be rented pretty quickly.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. And what made you decide to go to the medium and short-term rentals after you bought it?
Just learning again, right? So I started with just learning about basic long-term rentals, buying my first property, bought the second one, underwrote with multifamilies, and I just kept learning, like podcasts, reading, all that I could do to learn as much as possible. And it just was the ROI. I mean, like I said, I love numbers, so I just realized if I put in around 10K for rehab and furnishing costs, how much more can I increase the rent? How quickly will I pay that back?
Mhm.
And then everything after that is just extra income. So that's basically what I did. Just analyze the payback period. Obviously, you're kind of making some assumptions there, but the payback period and then how much more am I going to make after I pay that off? So
So have you built a calculator to do all this? on an Excel sheet, or how are you
multiple.
analyzing all of these deals and every property that hits the MLS?
Yeah, so at that time, I mean, we're talking Fairbanks, Alaska. So you maybe get like 10 properties a month. So it's
Okay.
pretty manageable to do,
Okay.
especially COVID, right? And a lot of deals would just get swooped up right away. So if it's sitting for a little bit or, I had the opportunity to, I was trying to underwrite them right away. But it's not the same as every single property in San Diego County.
Right.
But
Okay.
just assume you're looking at every property in a zip code or every property within a 10-mile radius or something like that. I
Hmm.
isolated where I was looking for, right? Because you want to filter things down as much as possible. And that's whether you're buying off the MLS, you're wholesaling, whatever. You always have this massive funnel of every potential property, and you're just putting more and more filters to find the right properties that hit what you're looking for, at least some of the criteria you're looking for. So then you're only analyzing those ones.
Mm.
So I started with that first. And then, yes, I created my own calculator, based on what I knew at the time. So it's like, long-term rental calculator. I used what was on Bigger Pockets, just made it easier for me, more customizable for my 2 to 4 unit space, for house hacking, all that kind of stuff. And then I just built on it for short-term rental, mid-term rental. But really, that one's kind of easy too. It's just a few more lines of, not even code, a few more lines in an Excel sheet in
Hmm.
regards to like what the additional renovation costs are going to be, what the additional rent would be, and just figured out what the payback period is.
Mm.
So that, yes, and that was basically after doing those two, I realized I love this. I love real estate, especially with little to no money down. But I hated how slow it was on the conventional side. I knew there'd be a point, understanding debt to income ratios where I would only be able to buy so much conventionally. I didn't want to keep waiting a year. I didn't, at that point I exhausted my VA loan and FHA loan, so I'd probably have to wait till I moved out of the area to do it with another house hack. Um, so that's when I really got into the creative space, or at least the off-market deal finding space, so I can find deals other ways. I mean, the other option is to buy things cash. And at that time, I wasn't fully comfortable using hard money loans because I don't do massive rehabs. I do cosmetic rehabs. So
Okay.
it doesn't really work as well if you're trying to get a hard money loan. Maybe in the market of the last few years, you can get lucky, but underwriting it just never made a lot of sense for me. So yeah, that's when I really got into the off-market deal finding.
Okay.
That was the
So
start.
so let's talk about that because now you're buying property weekly. You're
Now,
using creative strategies, owner financing, seller financing, other no money, low money down strategies. So let's go into like your strategy now. How are you finding deals? And then we'll run through them.
yeah, definitely. So I will say just real fast to get back to it. So wholesale, like my first entry to creative financing was seller financing. So for 20 rental cabins that I got in Alaska, I was targeting tired landlords, basically people who no longer lived on the property or were out of state, people who had a lot of equity. So like I said, it's all filtering, it's all creating funnels. So my idea is if I want seller financing, that's only possible if they have a lot of equity to seller finance to me. So that is how I targeted that initially and got that one. At the time though, I felt great. I was like, all right, I got my one. I'm gonna ignore all my other leads. Like this is enough right now. I just closed another property 2 months prior. And then I started wholesaling so I didn't have to buy and hold properties. And I tried wholesaling on my own for a few months. It was fine, made like 20K in a couple months, which is great because now that I've learned, it takes months to build your funnel, your pipeline before you actually start closing deals because it's all in
Hmm.
the follow up, not the
Hmm.
initial outreach. By the time I didn't know, so then I partnered with someone else, and that was my first entry into partnering with others. And that took that 20K and we like 5x'd it in a shorter time frame by just partnering with the right people who had complementary skill sets. And that's kind of the point that I got to before I decided to go much more all in into creative financing. So um, at that point, I was self managing all my units. So at that point, I had 27 rental units. I didn't have a bookkeeper. I was doing everything and I almost stopped with real estate investing. So that was like the next barrier for me to overcome was, hey, I'm burnt out. I don't know what to do. Like I'm not used to owning a business in the sense of like I need employees to help me or I need someone to assist me. But my in addition to the wholesaling partnership, my first real partners were paying a property manager for the first time. Hey, can you manage my properties? You get your split of that. And then it was okay, cool. What else is taking a lot of my time? All right, bookkeepers are taking a lot of my time, or bookkeeping's taking a lot of my time. I need a CPA, to review my taxes and submit all my tax returns for me. And then partnering in that sense before I decided to go all in partnerships. It's September, and I'm part of the Sub 2 community. That's really where I kind of exploded my creative finance knowledge and started
Okay.
incorporating
That's with Pace Morby, right?
with Pace Morby. Yeah,
Cool.
so I got out of just the seller financing because I knew there was more creative ways to do deals. I just didn't know how to do them, and I
Mhm.
didn't want to take that risk on my own. So it's basically once I delegated out a lot of my tasks, I thought it was a great time to start learning again. So I joined the Sub 2 community, added more tools to my tool belt. I was already kind of finding deals. I just didn't, not all the deals made sense. So like when you're a wholesaler, you have a specific deal that you're looking for. You're looking for a distressed property, someone in a lot of need where you can basically buy that property at 50 to 65% of its after repair value after your rehab and assignment cost.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that filters out a ton of properties. So then seller financing, okay, well, if that doesn't work, well, if they have a lot of equity, maybe I can buy it seller financed. And then adding to that, okay, well, what if I buy it subject to the existing loan if they don't have a lot of equity or they're in a pain point, but they have great debt that I can utilize for my benefit as well as take it off their hands so that, if
Mm.
they're going to lose the property or go into foreclosure or whatever short sale, at least I can solve this problem for them. Um, Lease options, whatever, like a variety of different creative options just kind of open the door to finding more deal flows.
Okay.
So,
And so how are you doing that now? Are you targeting leads through like a prop stream or
mm,
something like that, and then sending mailers, or what are you doing to get people to raise their hands right now?
we have my business partner have four different lead flow channels.
Okay.
So, um, both of us are really good at, we'll call it deal engineering, like creative finance deal engineering, like looking at a property, looking at the numbers and seeing what kind of solution can we provide that gets the seller out of their problem and also nets us some money on that deal, whether it's a buy and hold or we're wholesaling. So we
Mm-hmm.
got really good at doing that. So deal flow one is through other wholesalers who only really know cash, how to purchase cash. So basically they'll bring us the deal that may not work for cash. Instead of them wasting the lead, if we can convert it to creative and purchase it or wholesale it,
Mm-hmm.
we'll make sure to give them a percentage of that assignment split.
That's good.
So that's number one, deal flow. So that takes a lot of the dirty work of having to generate those leads and the cost. There's a lot of cost with wholesaling
Right.
too
Mm-hmm.
before you actually start making money on it. So that's one deal flow. Another one is JVing with people. Maybe someone has a motivated or warm lead. They don't know how to actually close it, or they don't know how to get from A to Z, but they know B to D. We help take them from A to Z, and we basically split assignments, or we end up being the end buyer for the deal if we like it. If we like it for our portfolio. So that's two of our lead flow channels, and then we have a traditional type of off-market deal finding channel where we have VAs that text blast and cold call primarily, um, a variety of lists, whether it's expired listings, people who tried to sell their property but couldn't, and it's now off the market. Maybe, the market told them their sale price was too high.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we can get there creatively for them. Once again, tired landlords, pre-foreclosures, although that one really door knocking works better and just building that relationship with them. And so they do that kind of thing. And then we also have a team that we built of right now it's around 15 people is where we're capping it at. So we have like 15 people actively within our group who are action takers who we want to get extremely proficient on that B to D. Basically, I provide them lists and motivations to call. They're doing direct to agent outreach right now. We help them through every step of the process if they need it. We have our own systems, our own tools for them, our own trainings for them. We do twice a week trainings with all of them and record it if they need to reference it again.
Mm.
Um, and they're basically, I want them to get extremely proficient on making that initial call, gathering some motivation. So really the four pillars of that you want from a lead is you want to know motivation for creative deals is number one. Like, why are they selling? Do they need to sell or do they just want to sell? Because
Mm.
we don't waste time with people who want to sell, just
Right.
those who really need to sell and help them out. What price are they looking for? What's the condition of the property? And what's their timeline to sell? And if it's on market, you basically have those last three. You know the price they want, you know the condition of the property with the photos, and you know they're trying to sell it as soon as they can. So we have them working on that, gathering that, and then gathering the information so they're able to underwrite the deal and then submit an LOI, basically using our scripts or a letter of intent, basically a informal, non-binding offer to the agent to present to the seller, and then we can negotiate from there.
Mm.
And then as long we want them to build on that foundation again, just like levels to it. So just build on building rapport with agents, then build on gathering the right info, build on underwriting the deal, and then build on submitting LOIs. And they can take the deal all the way to getting into contract, even displaying the deal if they want, and they just get a larger assignment split. But that's the focus of what we want them to really focus on, and we help every step of the way as needed. And it just, yeah. So those are our four different lead flow channels, and we target a variety of motivations. But right now, since the market's turned a lot, we like to focus on things on the market, maybe properties that haven't been able to sell.
Mm.
Um, they have high days on market. Maybe their price is too high, whatever it is, or the property needs a little renovations, or also those that work really great for subject to, which are the property, the person selling it has little to no equity. So if they try to sell a property for $450,000 and they bought it for 450,000 or even 440,000 less than a year ago with the FHA loan, VA loan, well, they're probably gonna have to pay a check just to sell their property once they
Right. They
account
have to
for
come out
closing
of
costs.
pocket. Yeah.
Exactly, agent commissions and all that. So it's like, well, what if we put a little money in your pocket, or at least offset the amount you would have to come out of your pocket on that sale, and then we basically buy the property,
Mm.
subject to their existing loan. And I don't know if you want me to get into the nitty gritty of different creative financing, like what
Yeah.
they are, but
Yeah, I think that's huge because like you said, right now with the way the market's shifted, there's a big opportunity for
mm,
this coming down the pipeline. So I think that let's definitely dive in. Let's break it down a little bit.
sure.
So you have your four pillars of how you've got the leads coming in.
Mm.
Um, who are you targeting for this group of 15 people, and how are you telling them to help? Because I'm guessing any agent could do that and bring you a deal.
So yeah, if an agent brings us a deal, it's more of like a JV
Okay.
opportunity. So we
Hmm.
JV all joint venture. We JV with people all the time. But in addition to that, like this 15 is like literally part of our team. It's different. We give them training and resources with like, for example, I was on a call up here right on the way here for a deal that I was working with one of my team members. The agent is interested in a seller finance option. We kind of talked about it a little bit, but at the end of those calls, they say, "Well, do you know of any other properties that maybe they have low equity or having a tough time selling, whatever. Just tell her different motivations that we're looking for at that
Hmm.
time, and let her know that hey, if you bring us any of those, we can make sure you get paid a commission or a marketing fee on those. So that's like the JV route for agents if they want to bring us deals
Got it.
that work within that kind of potentially. If we can close it, we want to make sure they get paid.
Yeah.
And if it's their deal, then even better. Or if it's their property, it's even better because then they get the commission, which is probably higher than the marketing fee.
Hmm.
But within our team, we have people in the sub two community that maybe are stuck in the learning phase sometimes or just need additional guidance. We have people who are traditional cash wholesalers, people who sell solar and things like that, because it's great um, if you're willing to do like the dirty work of going to knock on doors, gathering info, we can teach you the real estate side of things. Our biggest pre-screening is not even your real estate knowledge. Obviously, the more you have, the better. Like, right, the sub two
Yeah.
students who have actually been learning this stuff. But at the same time, we want action takers. So the main thing we do is have KPI requirements. At the bare minimum, they have to make 25 calls a week and submit 5 letter of intents a week. If they can't do that at minimum, then they just don't belong in our business.
Yeah.
And it's not like no hard feelings. Like we set that with our partnership agreement day one, explain like 50 times. Like all we want to do is work with action takers. I can teach you everything, but I'm tired of answering hypotheticals, theoreticals, what ifs. Like, those already come up in routine business of, hey, yeah, people ask, oh, what do you do with a VA loan? Or, hey, they just came out of a divorce and the judge is ordering them to sell it. Cool, I'll answer that when that deal comes in. And that deal just came in a VA loan with a divorce. They're on a timeline, creative, like, cool. We'll talk about that when the time comes up. But my business partner and I, before we partnered up, we're just answering and helping out a lot of people individually and realize that a lot of people we're helping are not actually taking the action afterwards. So we're spending all of our time, which is
Hmm.
massively valuable,
Yeah.
not being pretentious, but everyone's time is massively valuable. So we're sharing that time to them, and then they never actually do anything with that
Right.
info. So our goal is just to like train those people who are actually interested in learning and willing to take the action. And then as long as they keep taking action, even if they don't lead, I really care about leading and lagging indicators, right? You can control the number of calls you make, the number of LOIs you submit, the number of leads we pull, that kind of stuff. But we can't control, how many deals we're going to close and whatever. Like that's really like the end goal for the lagging indicator. But as long as they're doing the leading indicators, the calls, LOIs, then we know we're setting ourselves up for success to close more deals.
Hmm.
So that's what we really try to focus on with them is just make your calls, submit your LOIs, build your skill set of communicating with agents and sellers, whoever you're talking to. Build that skill set because you're not going to be great like anything. First time you got a basketball, you're not going to be LeBron James, right?
Right.
You build on the foundation, and like we reference a lot of Kobe Bryant stuff because he's all about that. Get good at one skill at a time.
Hmm.
One skill at a time is how he became one of the best players ever. Just one skill at a time. That's really what we focus on and like foster that like environment or community for.
Okay. And so who are these people calling? Are these all on market deals
This
that have
group,
just
yes.
been listed for a long time? Because I think a lot of the people that listen to this show are realtors,
Mhm.
brokers, and investors. and I'm just be curious how they can help sniff out deals, how they should be having conversations.
Hmm.
If someone has a listing that's not selling because the seller can't go any lower
Hmm.
and the price kind of is what it is, well, in those situations, then those terms deals can actually be more appealing and make it work.
Yeah, definitely. So I would say if you have something like that, bring it to us, JV with us, because we're awesome about it. Our business is coast to coast vets. Both my business partner and I are both veterans, and we own properties and wholesale properties from one coast to the other. Literally own properties in Alaska, California, Carolinas, Georgia, and then wholesale in a bunch of states in between.
Hmm.
But I would recommend that if you have something like that, the best way to learn is through experience. So maybe you won't make all the money up front when you try to close it yourself the first time, but we're really transparent about everything. So you bring us a deal and we JV on it, we split it very fairly, and we show you the ins and out of every part of what we're doing. We show you from how are we going to talk to that seller or agent? How are we going to negotiate that deal, underwrite that deal, lock it up in contract, transaction coordination, dispo it, all
Yeah.
every element of it. So it's like that's your learning is the best way in my opinion is to learn by doing. You could read and whatever, but like by doing you learn so much more. So that's I would say is probably the best way to do it. The types of motivations that I mentioned we're targeting right now: high days on market, um, low equity on market, like those situations, because really subject to is their only option. Otherwise, they're gonna come out of pocket and sell the property and have to pay to sell it, or they're not gonna be able to sell it and they're gonna have to make an additional mortgage payment or whatever
Right.
the reason for
Yeah.
selling is, um, or potentially get foreclosed on or have to do a short sale. And we know that's terrible for their credit. So what's better to have us make the payments on your property, make sure it's getting paid off, and building your credit and yeah, I guess that's one of the big things. And if we ever default on the loan, we put a performance deed in there. So basically, whatever down payment we gave them, all the payments that we made on behalf of them owning that property or us owning the property and the loan being in their name. If we default, then they keep the property transfers back to them prior to the actual default process even happens. So you have
Mm.
like a performance deed basically that ensures that they get the property back prior to the default process would even start
Without having to foreclose.
without having to foreclose. So it's
Yeah,
all held with like title handles, all that kind of
that's
stuff for
awesome.
us. And then the escrow servicing agency, if we utilize one
Yeah.
for the payment piece, or the rent collection, and then the mortgage payment piece, and what if there's a seller finance
All
piece.
right, so let's walk through one of these deals. Let's
Sure.
say I have a listing. It's been on the market 120 days. It hasn't sold, right? The market
Hmm.
has spoken. The price is not in line with where buyers want to be, but the seller can't go any lower. What is, let's break down that deal. What's the approach? What's the conversation? And then what are we doing?
Definitely. So, assuming I'm the one who's talking to them first and it's not kind of warmed up for me in a sense of like someone's already communicated, I would basically just ask them, hey, agent or seller, who do you want this to go through?
Let's go agent and
Okay.
then to seller.
Hey, agent, I noticed you have a beautiful property listed, but I see it's been listed for like 4 months already. You mind telling me kind of what's going on with this property? I don't. I don't like. Is there anything that I'm missing that's not on the listing? Because this seems like to be a great property, and maybe they'll say, "Yeah, we think the property should be sold for a little lower." Comps are, and sometimes they're truly transparent, especially if they're near the end of their contract. If it's 120 days in, they're pretty close to losing this listing anyway,
Right.
so they'll be transparent to try to get the deal sold. Yeah, we honestly can't go any lower. The seller has a loan out at this. If they sell it for any lower, they're gonna have to pay. Okay, well, you know, and then I explain typically. I lead nurture, so I don't do everything up front. I feel like it's a little too aggressive. So probably the second call, but nonetheless, I would tell them, hey, so I'm part of Coast to Coast Vets. We have properties, yada yada, whatever, and we tend to buy properties in a variety of different ways, right? We buy cash, but that probably won't work for your seller because we can only offer like 70% of its ARV. We can buy conventional, but we use them as rental properties, and I don't see that working with a 9% loan. That this would work for us, especially at this purchase price. But depending if your seller has enough equity or they're willing to allow us to buy their property subject to their existing loan, I might be able to get them to that full asking price as
Right.
long as the terms make sense and we're able to get a good investment out of it. We're pretty transparent. I even have agents. Now I'm just kind of talking to you, but I
Yeah.
even have agents on my underwriting call say, "Hey, this is why I can't give your seller 8% interest on it, or this is why I can't have a balloon in 3 years, or this is why this purchase price may not make sense for me, or whatever it is. Like I'll put them on a Zoom call and we will underwrite the deal together to explain to them, hey, like this is why this won't work. And then really at that point, then we're just trying to gather data. And it varies, right? If you're going for seller finance, the seller has a lot of control of the terms. Well, you can negotiate the terms of that seller finance deal. Obviously, first and foremost, the purchase price, the down payment. I never inherently ask what interest rate they want. I just more ask what payments do they want because I like to make principal only payments.
Mm.
Ideally, it's for them they're getting the payment that they requested, and for me I'm paying down that debt faster. Especially if there is a balloon, it's going to be a win-win because I'm more likely to be able to refinance it in the future and have the equity to refinance or sell it.
Okay.
You control the amortization schedule if there is interest, and then if there is a balloon. And like I said, I don't like to ask about that. If it's subject to, it's basically okay. What is their existing PITI? And break it down for me. I want to know when they bought the deal or when they bought the property for how much is remaining on the loan to be able to calculate the equity between the sale price and the
Yeah.
existing loan amount, and depending on if we're going to cash them out or seller finance that. And then taxes and insurance, ideally split up so that I can analyze what would the new taxes be, because this will be recorded, so the sale will happen, and depending on what state you're in, that might increase your taxes. And then insurance, we usually tend to keep their insurance in place and add additional insurance to not trigger or raise any red flags.
Mm.
And this is why I say it's so important to work with someone and JV with someone on your first sub two deal, because there's a lot of ways you can mess it up because the big boogeyman of sub two is what about the due on sale clause? Like the bank is going to find out and they're going to expect me to pay cash for this entire property. Well, cool. There's ways to circumvent that. Banks don't want to own property. That's why I was able to get a steal on my first deal, because the bank doesn't want to own real estate. They want to own the note and they want to make sure they're getting monthly payments. That's what they want.
Mm.
That's their business. They're not real estate investors. So as long as you're making your payments in a timely fashion, on time, if not a day or two early, usually, and it's a big bank, they're not going to really audit that loan to see like, hey, what's going on here? But the way they could sometimes raise red flags is if you get crazy with how quickly you change the insurance. So there's a variety of strategies to minimize that, whether you just keep the insurance in place, add yourself as additionally insured, and then you just create a whole new policy, or eventually you add yourself additionally insured, and then you like swap out, your responsibilities, keep them as additionally insured, whatever. There's a variety of ways to
Yeah.
do it. And I'm just kind of giving like a high level of, that and what the timeline for that looks like. But, that's really how you avoid the boogeyman. There is due on sale clause insurance. You basically pay some money up front to a provider who provides it. I've never used it.
Yeah, I
All the
just
people,
heard about that. Yeah.
yeah, all the people that I know, it's never happened to them. And if you have enough deal flow, like it doesn't really matter because you typically will be, and we use a lot of private money now. So worst case scenario, we bring someone on as an equity partner to pay that loan out. Like we're not really too worried about that at this stage. I
Mm.
guess if you're sub-2ing one property and only one property and it's your whole entire portfolio, maybe you'd be concerned with a due on sale clause, but it's even not likely for that to even occur, I
Yeah.
guess. So that's kind of the boogeyman and kind of how to
Okay,
avoid it.
so let's
Yeah.
let's stick on this example. I've got a
Oh yeah.
listing. It's 650,000.
Yep.
The seller owes, whatever they owe. Let's call it
600, or you want 650?
620,
Okay.
right? They put minimal down. Um, they owe 620. It's listed at 650, even with all the closing costs and commissions and everything. Like you said, they'd have to come out of pocket. Um,
We just say 10% to the agent when we're talking to you. We're going to say there's probably 10% of that, or sellers, that if you work through an agent, you're probably going to lose 10% of that in agent commissions, closing costs. We're going to negotiate with the inspection, especially if it's not been bought yet. So
mm,
you're probably losing 10% of that. So that 660 becomes roughly 600,000 really quick. So in that scenario, they're going to come and have to pay a check of $30,000 just to sell their property.
right.
That's insane,
Yeah. And 95% of people are not going to want to do that.
No, but also 95% of people don't want to be landlords, right? They don't want the risk of foreclosure. They don't want they don't want tenants who stop paying. They don't want to worry about a property. They're very comfortable with their W-2 and they just want to worry about their job and progress that way, like whatever it is. They also don't want to be a landlord,
Hmm.
nor do they want to pay $30,000 to sell a property.
Yeah.
So what are they going to
So
do?
they don't have many options.
No, foreclose on, short sale, pay that, or be a landlord.
So it's like, hey, I've got my buddy Michael. He's, a real estate investor. He has options for people like you.
Mhm.
Now you're talking to the seller. what is that conversation like that, first of all, my question if I'm the seller is why would you be willing to pay, 650 if it's only worth whatever it is in today's value.
So
Let's
Pace says this, right? It's pretty hilarious and I love it. But uh, equity comes and goes, but the cash will always flow. So I tell them, I don't actually care about your equity as long as it's within reason and there's not a quick balloon. So that's why I try to hold loans indefinitely. I'm a long-term buy and hold investor, but it has to cash flow for me. And on top of that, it's got to make enough sense that the cash on cash return is high enough. So my annual cash flow divided by the amount of money we have to pay to get into the deal, our entry costs, which are made up of the down payment, any agent commissions or any arrears, back payments we have to pay on the mortgage, any rehab costs, marketing costs, our private money lender, if we have to pay them any costs, whatever the variety of those entry costs are, and they change deal to deal a little bit. But as long as that number makes sense, then I'm willing to buy a property. I tell them I may not be the right buyer, but this is something that I offer. Like I'm not just buying everything just because someone's willing to sub to.
right, yeah.
People just like people wholesale terrible or lock up terrible cash deals. People lock up terrible wholesale deals just because someone's willing or
Sub to
creative
deals,
deals.
yeah.
Yeah, just because someone's willing to allow you to buy their property creatively, sub to, sub finance, whatever, doesn't mean it's a great deal. You
Mm.
still got to underwrite it. And I tell them that. So, I may not be the buyer, but if this makes sense for us in our, as an investment, then we might be able to help you out of this and you don't have to come out of pocket 30K. If they're going to lose 30K, I'm not going to give them a single penny to buy that property, but I'll save them 30K. So that 30K is still a net benefit to them in that regard. So why they would be willing to allow the sub
Mm.
to explain, if it's explain like, okay, well, if you're not trying to be a landlord, which, I'm telling you, if you want to rent it, if it would work for me as a rental, it might work for you, but we do have a little bit better systems. We're doing this all over the place. So, just explain that it's not just like put a renter in, you're good. There's a little bit to it. There's a little bit
Right,
of work
right.
involved. If you're willing to allow me to take over that deal, sub two, I would basically take over your loan, make all those payments on your behalf. You're not going to worry about foreclosures or short sale, which will wreck your credit for the next several years. Especially if you're trying to buy another home, that's going to suck. Save you money right away. If you have an agent, make sure your agent gets paid on that. So you don't know. You if they have equity, I mean, it comes from their equity pays their agent.
Hmm.
That's how we do it.
So in that scenario, you'd be paying the agent out of pocket.
In that scenario, we'd have to, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So it really depends, but only if the numbers make sense for that, right?
Sure.
Like I said, if it's 650 and it's worth 600, I still might be willing to buy it even if the loan's at 630 and I came in with 20K of closing costs. Basically, 650 to buy a $600,000 asset.
Yeah.
If the property cash flows sufficiently as a long-term rental, I can already tell you 650 is gonna be a tough one. That's why we don't do a lot in this market. It's just too hard unless you're willing to develop, build ADUs,
Mhm.
maximize the lot, rehab the property, basically flip it. It's really hard to just make it make sense as a long-term rental. And I underwrite everything still as a long-term rental,
Right.
even though we have short-term rentals, mid-term rentals, sober living homes. We house homeless veterans. We do federal and military contract housing. So like we have a variety of different exits, but I never want to put myself, my business partner, and our investors in a bad situation.
Yeah.
So I just underwrite conservatively, especially if we're coming in with no equity.
Yeah.
So kind of what we're looking
And the
for.
reason you're willing to do that again is because it's a cash flow play, and eventually the equity will catch up, whether that's 2 years or 10 years.
Yeah.
So then
Okay, I'll just
let
expand a little bit
yeah,
because
yeah,
like
yeah.
at the
Okay.
same no, at the same time, I'm not just only focused on cash flow because we could go into really bad states you don't want to own in that will never appreciate. I mean, when I was starting out, Alaska was my local market. That's always comfortable with in my own local market. And that's a great cash flow market, terrible appreciation market. So all I get from that is cash flow. The markets we're in now, basically East Coast states, are a healthy mix of cash flow and appreciation. So I know our properties will appreciate. We're not banking on it, but we know it will happen.
Yeah.
And the cash flow makes sense to buy it day one and not lose the property because it was just a bad investment. So I will state that,
Okay.
it's a combination. Sure, I can get 50+% cash on cash return in a terrible market because it's got high rental demand, but also we are very selective about where we want to own. We
Right.
might wholesale that. There might be a buyer for that, but that's not the one for us to keep in our portfolio. So I
Makes
just want to
sense.
clarify that.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Okay, so now I'm the seller.
Mhm,
I've agreed we're gonna sell to you at 650.
mhm.
Um,
Underwrites well.
it underwrites well, so you're happy on your side. Let's talk about, I want to talk about three things. I want to talk about the balloon and how
Mhm.
you set up the how long I'm on the hook for this mortgage while you're making the
For sure.
payments and all
Yeah.
that. And I want to talk about the due on sale clause, which we kind of touched on briefly. And then I want to talk about how I'm going to be able, as the seller, buy another property again and what that kind of looks like. But let's start with the balloon
Okay.
and how you're kind of structuring the deals. Like, how long am I holding the note for you?
Indefinitely till the loan matures. That's the goal always. I mean,
Okay.
I don't state interest. I ask what payment do you want and see if I can make it make sense. And I ask, basically, I don't bring up interest rate and I don't bring up balloon timelines. I go into the intention of buying every creative deal, especially subject to loans, until that loan matures. That's always my goal. Does it always happen? No. Are we willing to the lowest I'm really comfortable with is maybe 8 years because that can survive any market cycle. Even right now, some people think it's different. It's market by market specific, right? You'd say something different here compared to San Francisco, compared to some of the other
Mhm.
Midwest states or some of the markets we're buying in. But 7 to 8 years is pretty safe timeline in my opinion, and you can have an exit option of a wrap. Whatever, we're not going to get done for whatever. We're not going to get too much into the weeds of it, but um, so 7 to 8 years, maybe if they're like adamant, hey, I don't want this loan under my name forever, we are open to 2 to 3 year balloons. Not ideal because you really can't control what happens in the market, but that's only if we're able to put in a contingency. I was actually talking to one of my team members about this right before I came in, but
Okay.
a contingency that allows us to uh, extend the balloon period, extend the term of the loan, um, if it doesn't appraise for a refinance.
Got it.
Because I don't want to
So
be
if
a
you're
forced seller.
unable to refinance
If
it,
we don't have enough equity, it didn't
then
either appreciate or we didn't pay back down the loan enough, we're going to extend this for 1 year at a time until we can. When we hit
automatically.
15%, 20%, yeah, whatever equity we
Got it.
agree into on that
Got
deal.
it.
Usually, if you're going to refinance an investment loan, you're going to need around 20 to 25% equity in that property, 75% loan of value.
Hmm.
So that's kind of what we're looking for in
And
that
are you
instance.
saying anything about rates at all? Like rates can't be above this or that, or does that not play in as much?
It depends. That's the cool thing about creative finance. Everything is negotiable. I've
Right.
got like ridiculous, like if I explain it to just a traditional buyer, like ridiculous terms in some of mine, like where you get a certain payment day one, you get specific payments between months 6 through 12, and then the rest balloons in like 10 years. Like
Okay.
that's not like conventional, but like it really solved the seller's problem because that's what we're trying to do is solve the seller's problem every time, whatever that problem is. And that really allows us to come in with little to no money up front.
Mm.
But yeah, so the interest rate could be negotiated. Yeah, I only want to do it if my investment, if what I'm getting, but that's a tough one, right? Because it's like, well, shop around lenders, buy down points, whatever. But it's really like the equity that we focus on. Once we have this much equity in the property, whether we paid off the loan enough or the property appreciated enough, but you can also put in like a contingency as well in conjunction with that in
Mm.
regards to the interest rate. Like I only want to refinance your 3% loan. Worst case scenario, if it's at 6% or something like that, because you're
Okay.
underwriting it up front. We do a pro forma to see in these various scenarios what interest rate would allow us still cash flow. Then you
Got
have to account for, expenses are going to go up a little bit, but your rent's going to go up a little bit.
it.
They'll
Right.
somewhat offset, but whatever. Like underwriting it more specifically on those short balloons. But I don't like balloons, so I will state that I don't. They say sub to balloons are for clowns. That's so we don't like balloons.
So here's what I like about what you said and what I don't like about what you said.
Sure,
And that's not a personal thing.
sure.
I'm saying I love that everything's negotiable.
Mhm.
I love being able to have the creativity to structure deals however you like. What I don't like, slash, what makes me nervous, is how you paper all that up, especially in a
Mhm.
state like California where everyone's so sue happy.
Yeah.
So, how are you papering these things up with these random terms and these extension clauses and all of that stuff? I'm guessing that's not anything boilerplate.
You want to know my secret?
Yes.
I don't. I have transaction coordinators, I have real estate attorneys, I have them drafted up
Right.
in the state, in the market, who are experienced with creative deals.
Got
I
it.
don't. And that was what I'm so thankful for right around a year ago, where I decided I am not going to do everything on my deal. Just because I can replace flooring doesn't mean I should. Just because I can paint doesn't mean I should.
Mhm.
Just because I can create a custom lease doesn't mean I should. Just because I can't do all these things
Yeah.
doesn't mean I should be the one
Yeah.
doing it. Because these guys do it day in
Especially
and
the
day out,
legal part.
especially the legal part.
Especially the legal
I
part.
mean, things are isolated and siloed in their own LLC. So, like, worst case scenario, maybe you're screwed on that one property or that
Mhm.
one transaction. But I never want to jeopardize anyone in that deal, including the homeowner, myself, my partners, my investors, whoever it is. Like, I don't want to put anyone at more risk than I can. And usually that's just putting the right people to make those decisions up front and just paying a slight premium on that. So, using the right contracts and having the right people draft them up and then manage that the transaction coordination of it from
Mhm.
purchase and sale agreement or even negotiation to putting in the right purchase sale agreement, adding the right addendums, and then getting it closed.
So is that, and I'm guessing you're getting a lot of connections through the sub two group that
Mm-hmm.
you're a part of and stuff like that. So it's really just about finding an attorney that is comfortable and familiar with this type of real estate deal,
Yep. Word of
and
mouth.
then explaining what the terms you have in mind are, and then they draft everything up for you.
Yes. We do have some boilerplate standard creative finance documentation, but yes, depending on how detailed or specific or weird that transaction might be, then yes, we have that. But like if it's just straight up sub two loan, there's not much to do there. If it's a seller finance loan, it's got pretty standard terms. Even that, honestly, like our transaction coordinator can basically handle most of it because we've seen mostly everything in the sub two community.
Mm.
But I will say I love sub two. I recommend if you want to join it, join it. But just because you join and pay for a membership doesn't mean anything. Like, you can pay and join everything in the world.
Of course,
There's
you still
hundred
got to take
thousand
action.
dollar.
You have
Yeah,
to
it's
take an action.
yeah, exactly. And even the learning in there is like fine. It's good learning, right? I learned well, but you learn a lot more when you take action and you network. That's what you're really paying for. Those word of mouth referrals. Hey, anyone in, I don't own anything in, I guess I do, but let's say Fayetteville. I don't own anything in Fayetteville. Um, who has North Carolina? This is a bad example because this is a state we work in, but who's got a title
Idaho,
company?
Idaho.
Idaho. Who's got a
Yeah.
title company in Idaho that handles creative finance deals? That's done a sub two loan, or that's done a seller finance transaction, or who's done it, whatever, you know. So just using those referrals, and people are always really willing to help, especially like my business partner, like I said, are leaders in the community because we go givers. We give so much help without asking for anything in return. So then when we do ask for help, people flood in and help.
Yeah.
You know, I had a guy, computer engineer, he's not a scientist, computer engineer this morning, helping me use Zapier for the first time to link us, just whatever. Like people are willing to help, and the more you're willing to help, the more it.
That's
And this
great.
is a guy who was like first 100 sub two, you know, part of the mentorship, first 100, and he's still also willing to help me even now. Like you'd think he'd be above and beyond and gone now. He's done. He's learned everything, but he was still willing to help me on just doing this. You know, he's got his computer engineering skill sets that really help me
That's
out with
awesome.
some automate a couple of my systems, which is pretty sick. So
Love that. So agreed. It's all about the connections and being in the right rooms. I mean, we say that all the time. So that's a key component, especially to get in contact with to your point, the people, the title companies, the as attorneys and things like that that have experience
mhm,
in that market and have done this type of deal before, right?
yep.
That's super important. So what about I'm sure you hear this all the time is I want to buy another house, and if I have this loan, I'm not going to be able to buy another house. So what does that look like, and how do you handle that?
Yeah, so once you get to my point and you house hack a bunch of multifamilies or you have a lot of properties under your personal name, then it becomes kind of an issue with your debt to income ratio. Like there's no real good way to solve that. But for most people, they have a house and they're trying to buy the second house.
Hmm.
So most people are able to do it even with their debt to income ratio because they're not maximizing the amount of money the amount of debt that they can take under their name. But nonetheless, a lot of lenders will allow you to, even if you don't have 2 years of landlord experience, if you have a lease showing that this property is fully self-sufficient, it's fully getting covered, they won't give you the income credit for it, but they'll offset all of the debt payments for it. Or if we need to, as long as it's showing that an escrow servicing company or someone else is making your debt payments, making your mortgage payments, then a lot of times lenders will not account for that as well. Not every lender, most just like agents, right? Not every agent's a unicorn agent. They're not an investor agent. Not every lender is a unicorn lender or a investor minded lender, even if they're not investor minded. But as long as you have the right people and our transaction coordinator helps with that, communicate with them and just explain, hey, this is what's going on. Maybe not into the nitty gritty details, but it's like you just show they're no longer the ones making the payments on that debt, or here's the lease, we'll put a lease together showing, hey, we're renting this property out from them or whatever, that fully, and we make the payments directly or whatever on their behalf, that subsides a lot of that debt to income concern.
Mm.
And similar with, well, different for VA loans about entitlement, but that's a big question that comes up too. So
All right, let me make sure I understand. Let me
yeah,
run that back real
yeah,
quick.
definitely.
So the loan's under my name. I'm selling it to you. I'm holding the paper. Um, and I want to go buy again. It sounds like I got to wait probably 2 years to get through the being able to show it being self-sufficient.
No, so 2 years is basically if you own properties in your personal name and on your tax returns, you can basically pretty quickly offset the debt under your name for your debt to income ratio, but you can't utilize any, like let's say your PITI, your loan payment is $1,000 a month. You're making $1,500 in rent. That $500 can't benefit you to buy more until you have
Right,
2 years of experience, or you have a professional property management company managing that property.
right.
That's what that 2 year time frame really is.
Got it.
Realistically, if you just show a lease, typically they'll offset the debt payment amount. They won't give you any of the income benefit, but they'll just say, hey, that because when they're doing
They
your
don't take it out of your DTI.
yeah, because when you're doing your DTI, they're not looking at the total loans in your name. They're looking at the loan payments you're responsible for relative to your income. Your
So I'm guessing that's something extra that I have to do on my part. Like, hey, I have this other property. I'm actually not paying for it anymore, though. Here's all the paperwork.
yeah.
Um,
And we
and
are
then
very
they would,
transparent about that up front because that's always a question, especially when we're working with well agents or sellers. And so like we like to ask, do they already have another property? Are they planning on renting? Are they planning on buying right away? Understand like that's part of their motivation. It's not just the motivation to sell, but what are they looking to do? How can we solve their problem? And that helps with the down payment and all that. Like if they say, hey, they need $50,000 to buy a boat and they're going to go live on that boat. Well, okay, cool. We know at minimum they need $50,000 down payment or whatever. Like it's building that picture
mm,
for your seller and then crafting a deal that makes sense for them. And then we're able to pull the trigger if it makes sense for us too. Like
yeah,
we're not the buyer for everyone. And
right,
I'm very transparent about that. I honestly think it works in our favor being transparent. They're like, hey, this just may not work between us because it's got to make sense for us too. We're not desperate to buy our home.
right.
We have plenty of leads. There's another lead closing, here's the ones we closed in the last quarter or last month or whatever. Like we're not worried about closing every deal. We're worried about closing the right deals and solving your seller's problem if we can.
Yeah, makes sense.
So we're transparent about that. We say that up front. I mean, back to the DTI thing that this is how it could impact you.
So, okay, so as long as, and what was the other thing you said? A servicing company making it. So it's a lease. Either me and you write a lease that you're now leasing it and have the ability to sublease it or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And that shows that you're responsible for the payment and I'm not. And I take that to my new lender and hope that that goes through. If not, maybe find a lender that will
Yeah.
work with that. And then the other thing you said was
So if the seller prefers, in our opinion, the best way to take over a sub two loan and make payments on it is to just get your account access, change it to our name, and make our payments directly on there. That's the easiest way, saves on the most cost. Not everyone's comfortable with that. So we have a variety of escrow servicing companies that basically either collect the income directly and then pay out the first position if there's the loan, then they pay out the second position if there's a seller finance, second position, or and then maybe a third position for your private money lender. They could be second or third position, whatever, but they make those payments and then our business collects what's left over. That's what that escrow servicing company does.
mm,
And it's nice because it gives them more makes it more comfortable for them to understand it's going through this third party. These are how our payments made. Your debt is our number one focus. Maybe we don't collect enough income at one point to do your seller financing bit. We'll have to cover that out of but at least like out of our income or whatever our reserves. But at least you know that your debt is getting paid, and we'll even put maybe a little bit of money in the escrow servicing company as like reserves
mm,
for any vacancies or anything like that.
got it.
So that's what they do, and then sometimes like some of our guys, like some people I've bought deals from, I've never talked to them again because that's how they prefer it. Some people want a monthly statement showing them, all right, here's where the loan is, here's the payments that have been made, here's like what was principal, what was interest, what was this, what was that. So that's what the escrow servicing companies can offer you is
And in
basically a
that
middleman.
scenario, you're just sending them the money and they're paying everybody out every month.
Yeah, or the money's going directly to them first and then coming to us
Gotcha.
after all those expenses are paid. So then we can pay utilities and
Got it.
keep our purse
Also,
straight.
like your tenants would pay them direct.
Yeah, pretty simple. Yeah, it's pretty
Got it.
simple. Like they make it real easy. Like
Okay.
they're really the middleman on these types of
Yeah,
transactions.
makes
I mean,
sense.
they probably do a bunch of other things, but that's how I've utilized these escrow servicing companies. And like private money loans, typically we do it through something like that, just so that it just allows that third party in between to kind of make everyone feel more comfortable if they want that. If they want monthly or annual reports, it's easier for their taxes, especially if we're paying interest as well, because they can deduct that. They don't have to worry about us calculating. It's already given to them on a monthly or annual basis. So it's nice for us. We pay depending on where, 15 to 25 bucks a month to like have
Hmm.
that work. And you pay like depending on the loan amount, you pay something up front or whatever. But yeah.
Okay.
So it's pretty sweet. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's very
And it
interesting.
makes them more comfortable sometimes. Sometimes they don't care. They're like, we just save them from pre-foreclosure. They were a few weeks out of auction date or what, or auctions next week or something crazy,
Yeah.
and there's no way they can pay their arrears. And then they're like, please just help me out of this. Others, a tired landlord more than likely wants that like certainty or
Hmm.
wants to see those numbers. Cool. We can do it all.
Makes sense. Okay, and then the due on sale clause. I'm sure that's another big fear for people. Like, hey, you're taking over my payments, but what if the lender catches wind and now that triggers the due on sale clause?
Yeah. So there's a variety of ways to handle that. I mentioned earlier about the due on sale clause insurance. We don't do it. We're comfortable that we can raise the capital if we need to buy that property if we need to. Or there's a variety of other options, right? We could transfer title back to the seller and then buy it from them on a lease option or a land contract or whatever. Like we could transfer title back to them and figure it out. Then if we have the cash, we can pay for it. We won't just pay, we won't just get 300,000. So that's why it's different, right? Like if you're sub-2ing a loan that's $1 million in San Diego, and it doesn't cash flow, your banking appreciation is like, dang, you have a lot of things working against you in that regard. So you don't,
Yeah,
and the due on sale clause on $1 million is a lot harder to raise than $400,000 or
right.
$200,000. So yeah, so there's a variety of options. We could either transfer title back to them, we can and then buy it from them a different way, right? Maybe not sub-2, but just buy it a different way, and the ownership's back to them.
Mm,
We could put them if the bank will allow, or we could talk to the bank too, right? Like, hey, this is the situation. You're basically gonna get this property back. We were able to save your seller, whatever. See if that works. You can create an LLC with that seller, so they're also a member on that LLC. You can, like I said, do a land contract. You could do a lease option. You could do a variety of other things. I mean,
okay.
there's like a variety of ways to overcome it. Like it's the boogeyman, but there's like also solutions to this boogeyman. Like it's not the end all be all. And worst case scenario, due on sale clause, you have to buy that property outright. Cool. All right, bank. Like, cool. We paid your loan off. Worst case scenario.
Yeah.
That's like literally the worst case scenario. There's like nothing else they can do.
But it
Like, what are
sounds
they
like
gonna
the
do?
main options are deed it back.
Yeah.
Uh,
Deed it back and then buy it from them. Obviously you'd have to be in agreement with them. Buy it from them in a different form. Without, like I said, it's never happened, but that's an option.
yeah.
Get an LLC together with that seller and just show that they're an owner of it, or they transferred it to their title, like put them on RLC that owns the property in some way to show they own it. And actually I sold it or I transferred it to my LLC. Oh, you can't do that. All right, whatever.
Mm,
Talk to the bank, explain to them what's going on. And like I said, that if you're talking like a small, not even regional bank, like a small local bank, a credit union, maybe that'll happen. Like maybe they're auditing but they have so many loans coming in and out. Like, do they have the manpower to just audit every single loan, especially their loans that are performing,
yeah.
especially with bank lending tightening and bank runs being a concern. Like they're not, they want to just, I guess that would probably be why they want their money back, but whatever. They're not spending the time like looking and auditing every single loan.
And it sounds like you're not that worried about it because there's these options. And if you really were worried about it or are worried about it, you would just pay for that insurance.
Yeah. Or we can
And then,
sell it. We could refinance it depending on how long, there's options there too,
yeah.
right? Like there's a variety of ways you can handle that.
And
Like I
it
said, I'm
sounds
very
like not a
conservative.
huge percentage, anyways.
No,
Yeah.
it's the boogeyman that like never comes out, right? It's the boogeyman. It's potentially under your bed or in the closet, but you never actually see it. It never actually happens. You're always afraid of it, or some people are always afraid of it.
Yeah. What is one thing that stops a lot of these deals from going through?
People not knowing what they're doing, not having the right transaction coordinator, trying to self-perform it. The title company's not familiar with it. They say they can do it, and then in the last, oh wait, we didn't know it was this. Like Those are the big things. Sometimes people lock up contracts and don't actually, it's a bad deal. So they don't actually have buyers that can close on it. There was mistakes in the contract, lack of experience and knowledge.
Hmm.
I guess that's what usually does it. If you have experience and knowledge, you're going to already solve a lot of those issues. You're already planning for all those potential issues up front. I mean, I guess that's the simplest way to put it.
And then I guess my last concern is if I was a seller, it's the what if you don't perform, right? What
Mhm.
if you don't pay your bills? And it sounds like
The performance deed
you
in the
have the
contract.
performance deed. So explain how that
Yeah.
works real quick.
So, like if you're late on a payment, like to the bank on your mortgage payment, it's like 15 days you're actually late and then they assess like a late fee on there. But they don't start, okay, cool, we're foreclosing on you right away. Like it's a multi-month process. In California, it's like forever.
Yes, 90
Like,
days just on the NOD.
yeah, so it's like, okay, well, we have the performance deed that basically states that, and this is all part of the purchase agreement, that if we are late by 15 days on your mortgage payment, basically title transfers back to you. I'm not going to get into all the back end logistics. That's part of like work with us or joint sub two or whatever to understand what that looks like and
Mhm.
the documentation that protects them and how
Right.
title or the escrow servicing company will handle that process. But
But essentially, it's written so that if you're 15 days late on the payment, the property automatically comes back to
way
me
before the foreclosure process even close
as
to
the
starting,
seller,
you keep
and
all the
you're
down
out
payment.
everything.
Yeah, you keep all the down payment we gave you, all the payments we made on your behalf, all the renovations. If we made this awesome short-term rental business in there with, furnished and all that. I mean, I don't know, like that's not really written in the agreement, but the idea is you get it all back and you,
Mm,
you get all the benefits of it, especially if it's like physical improvements of the property.
wow.
Yeah. So it's like worst case scenario, yeah, maybe you become a landlord in the future. We saved you out of a hole, especially for a pre-foreclosure. And potentially worst case scenario, you just sell it again if you truly don't want to own it.
Love that.
Yeah. So it's like that's the biggest thing I want to communicate. We're not here to take like cash cash wholesaling sucks. You're literally negotiating with a homeowner who's in a tough situation, trying to buy their property at 50 to 60% of what it's worth. That sucks. But what we're trying to do ideally is solve someone's problem, get them out of a bad situation, for example, low equity on market, pre foreclosure, whatever it is, get them the price that they want as long as we can get it on terms that allow us to make the money we need to as well.
Right.
We're really trying to create like a win-win scenario. Agents involved, win-win-win scenario. They're going to get their commission on that too on a deal that may not work or a property that may lead to foreclosure. Like no one wants that either, you know? So it's
Exactly.
like we're really just trying to Pace calls it finding the bunnies. Like we want to know what problem can we solve for the seller, and that's all we try to do. I don't mess with people like I said who want to sell, who needs to sell, and what problem do they have that we can potentially solve that also benefits us. And not just in the sake of cool, we bought your property 40% off, but cool, we're able to solve your problem and we were able to add to our investment portfolio.
Love that.
So I love it too because it's like
Yeah.
problem solving. That's what I realized too with what I did as a when I wanted to be a doctor. I wanted to help people. When I joined the military, I wanted to help people in our country. Engineering, I wanted to help solve problems, and I'm very passionate about the environment, sustainability, because I truly care about people. And this is like my way of, in addition, another way of real estate investing, but able to help people and solve problems. And I
Yeah.
love that.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Cool, man.
agreed.
Yeah. So I have two questions I like to wrap with.
Sure.
Um, the first one will be very on topic. What, in 60 seconds or less, what does it take to be a good creative real estate investor?
I would say there's a shortcut, like you can just join the right mentorships and learn creative financing only. But I would say learn how to underwrite deals on market on the MLS with just one variable. Then maybe spend a little time wholesaling and understanding how does that work when there's a few more variables, and then get into the creative side because you're just building your education. It's hard to go and take college level physics or master's level physics if you've never taken the elementary and high school versions. So
Mhm.
just start with the simple stuff, learn and keep building on that, and then you'll get there. That's my honest opinion. Or expedite that through the right mentorships, the right partnerships, but that's hard if you're coming in with little to no experience, deal finding skills, um, or um, or money.
It's
You know,
great advice.
yeah, and I will say what we do offer, and what we do offer that's really cool too is when we're JVing with people, we bring them in, get them their assignment fee, and teach them that process. And same with our private money lenders. I'll be extremely transparent about how we raise private money. Like we have private money lenders that are 10 to 12% interest only over a certain time period, and those are our silent partners typically. You give us money, we make sure to pay you back every month. Great. But we also offer around the 6 to 7% range private money loans, which is twice as much as the high yield savings account, like a million times more than what your bank's getting you. And in that process, you're truly our partner. We teach you every single step of the way of what we're doing. We show you what list we targeted, how we found that deal, how we negotiated, how we underwrote it, every step of the way, and you're making better returns than you can in the bank. It's way more certain than the stock market because it's backed by real estate, a physical asset. So that's kind of what we're doing. We're incorporating that as well now, which is pretty cool too. Because
Yeah.
a lot of more people have taken us up on the 7% with learning than the 10 to 12% silent money, which is hilarious because I don't even know who else does it. It's pretty cool.
That's slick. I like
Yeah.
that. Yeah, it's a good way to do it. And it probably helps you raise money.
Oh, for sure. I mean, yeah, raising capital, it just allows us to grow at the rate we want to. So
Yeah, scale way faster. Cool. Last question. I have two young boys at home,
mhm.
5 and 7 years old.
Oof.
And what would your advice be to them and the next generation on how to be successful in business and life?
So I truly feel this way. I I only thought success meant going to school, getting like a master's or becoming a doctor or a lawyer or something like that was the path to wealth because obviously we're not all cut out to be athletes and all that. Then what I learned is you can be extremely successful if you're truly passionate about what you do and you're a leader in that environment. So
Mm.
whether you're a makeup artist or I don't even know, you're actually a clown or whatever you truly enjoy, like making music, content, whatever it is, as long as you're really passionate about that, you love what you're doing, and you want to excel in that, I think you can be successful in anything, especially in this day and age. Like with the way content is monetized, social media, and I'm terrible at social media, so I'm like the last person to ask about that. But you can monetize social media, YouTube, whatever, in conjunction with whatever you're really passionate about, and you're providing that value to the world that you truly want to. And usually those people end up succeeding, like as opposed to just taking the safe route. That's what I would say.
That's great.
Yeah.
That was right on the money for me. Well, I appreciate it, Michael, man. Thanks again. This has been very insightful. I think the stuff you're doing in the creative space is great, and I definitely am interested in learning more. For the people that do want to connect with you, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Cool. So social media, even though it's pretty terrible, my Instagram is Michael Michael, and the first four letters of my last name MNAT. So it's Michael Mike November Alpha Tango. I spell it out. You get our business is Coast to Coast Vets. We have Instagram there. You'll find some links. We're just building that one out right now. We have some links to like connect with us, whether you're want to be one of our private money lenders, you need Gator lending. I can get into that, but you have deals you want to JV on, you want deals you want to sell to us potentially, or have us help you dispo on. You want to join our team, although like I said, we're pretty capped out. We don't want to overly dilute it because it's not just like yeah, whatever. We don't want to overly dilute it, or if you want to be on our buyers list. So
Mm.
that's where you can get most of the stuff. I mean, my name, you search up Michael Mnatsakanian. I'm the only one I think on the internet, so you'll find me.
Well, very cool and coast to coast vets. So
Yes.
definitely connect with Michael. If you have any questions, put them in the box below. As always, if you guys like money and you like real estate, hit that subscribe button because this is the show for you. We'll see you on the next one. Cheers.
Cheers. Thanks.